Hello, story lovers. Tonight, we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat. Comment below where you're watching from, and if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who loves a powerful love story, and tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin. The amber liquid burned down Emma Chen's throat as she stared at her reflection in the floor-length mirror. The emerald silk dress clung to her like armor, beautiful, expensive armor that couldn't protect her from what she was about to do. Manhattan's glittering skyline mocked her through the window, a reminder of everything she'd sacrificed to climb this high, and how precarious her position really was. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Richard Hampton, her boss. Emma, remember, tonight is crucial. Hartwell Foundation equals partner track. Don't disappoint me. She closed her eyes, tasting the metallic tang of desperation. 29 years old, marketing director at Pinnacle Advertising, and still begging for scraps from men who saw her as decoration first, professional second. The charity gala tonight would determine everything: partnership or permanent middle management purgatory. The doorbell's chime at exactly 7 p.m. made her stomach clench. Showtime, she whispered, then opened the door. The man standing in her hallway wasn't Michael Torres from Elite Companions. This stranger was taller, broader, with steel-gray eyes that seemed to strip away her carefully constructed facade. His black tuxedo fit like it was tailored by angels, and when he smiled, something dangerous flickered behind his perfect composure. "You must be Emma," he said, voice smooth as aged whiskey. "I'm David. Michael had a family emergency." Emma's pulse hammered against her throat. "I specifically requested Michael." "I don't know anything about you." David stepped closer, close enough that she caught his scent: sandalwood and something darker, more primal. "Mrs. Patterson briefed me thoroughly. I promise you'll find me more than capable." Every instinct screamed at her to slam the door, but desperation won. She needed tonight to be perfect, and he was here, real, magnetic in a way that made her hands shake. "Fine," she said, stepping aside. "But we need our story straight. We've been dating 3 months, met at a bookstore in Soho. What kind of books?" he interrupted, genuinely curious. The question caught her off guard. Most escorts would memorize basic facts, not craft authentic details. "Business strategy. I was researching international market expansion." "And I was in philosophy," he said smoothly. "Marcus Aurelius. We bonded over Stoic principles in modern leadership." Emma stared at him. "You've actually read Meditations? You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His gray eyes held hers. "Changed how I view impossible situations." Something shifted in her chest, a recognition she couldn't name. In the elevator, his hand found the small of her back, guiding her with possessive gentleness that sent electricity down her spine. The touch felt too real, too right for their arrangement. "Nervous?" he asked as they settled into the sedan. "Always before events that could destroy my career," she admitted, surprised by her honesty. David turned to face her fully. "Tell me about it. What makes tonight so crucial?" And somehow, she did. About fighting for recognition in rooms full of men who saw her as a quota to fill. About the pressure to be twice as good for half the credit. About the suffocating weight of everyone's expectations. He listened like her words mattered, asked questions that proved he understood corporate warfare's brutal nuances. "Success often comes from being authentically yourself," he said as the Mandarin Oriental came into view, "rather than what others expect. Easy to say when you're not fighting for your life every day." His expression darkened. "Sometimes the fight changes us in ways we don't expect. The question is whether we like who we become." The ballroom glittered with crystal and ambition. Emma felt David's presence beside her like a shield as New York's elite assessed her with calculating eyes. "Emma, darling." Richard Hampton materialized with his wife, both studying David with undisguised curiosity. "You look stunning." And you must be David, he said, extending his hand with perfect poise. Pleasure to meet you, Richard. Emma speaks of you often. She's incredibly passionate about the Hartwell Foundation project. Richard's eyebrows rose. You're familiar with our work? Environmental sustainability marketing fascinates me. Making conservation profitable requires revolutionary thinking. Emma watched in amazement as David engaged Richard in sophisticated discussion about market trends and consumer psychology. He spoke with authority that came from years of high-level experience, not from someone who. Her breath caught. Who was he really? As the evening progressed, David navigated every social interaction like he owned the room. He remembered names, asked intelligent questions that advanced her business interests, and charmed the foundation's board members with insights that left them impressed. Your boyfriend is remarkable, Catherine Hartwell whispered during dinner. Such depth and intelligence. You're very fortunate. Emma smiled and nodded, but confusion gnawed at her. When David excused himself for a phone call, she watched him speak with the commanding tone of an executive, not a consultant. When the orchestra began playing, he extended his hand. May I? On the dance floor, held close in his arms, Emma felt something she hadn't experienced in years: genuine connection. David moved with natural grace, leading her through the steps while his cologne made her dizzy with want. You're full of surprises, she murmured against his shoulder. Good surprises, I hope, he replied, breath warm against her ear. She looked up into those storm-gray eyes and saw something that made her heart stop. The way he was looking at her didn't feel professional. There was heat there, hunger, something real and dangerous. Very good surprises, she whispered. As the song ended, his hand lingered on her waist. For a heartbeat, they stood motionless in the middle of the dance floor, surrounded by couples but feeling utterly alone together. Then Jennifer, her assistant, appeared with breathless excitement. Emma. James Alexander from Technova just arrived. He never comes to these events. Emma felt David's body go rigid. She glanced at him, but his expression had become carefully neutral. Who's James Alexander? He asked, too casually. One of the youngest billionaire CEOs in the city, Jennifer gushed. Incredibly private, never gives interviews. Some call him the ghost of Silicon Valley. David's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Something flickered in his eyes. Panic? Fear? Sounds intriguing, he said, but his voice had changed, become distant. As they waited for their car at evening's end, Emma realized tonight had exceeded every expectation. Clients were interested, Richard had mentioned partnership discussions, and she'd spent the most enchanting evening of her life with this mysterious man. Thank you, she said. Tonight was perfect. David smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The pleasure was entirely mine, Emma. In the car, she found herself hoping this wouldn't be their last meeting. Professional arrangement or not, she felt connected to David in ways she didn't want to lose. Would you like to come up for coffee? She asked as they reached her building, heart pounding. David looked at her for a long moment, conflict warring across his features. I'd like that very much, he said finally. But as they walked toward her building, Emma caught his reflection in the glass doors. For just a moment, his carefully controlled mask slipped, revealing something that made her blood run cold. Fear. Desperate, haunted fear. And she realized she had no idea who she'd just invited into her home. Emma woke to the scent of coffee and something else, danger wrapped in silk sheets and morning light. The space beside her in bed was empty but still warm, and she could hear movement in her kitchen. For a moment, she let herself pretend this was normal, domestic, real. Then reality crashed back. She'd hired him. Whatever had happened between them last night, the chemistry, the connection, the way he'd held her like she was precious, it was all part of an arrangement. She found David in her kitchen, fully dressed in his tuxedo pants and white shirt, sleeves rolled up as he prepared breakfast. The domestic scene made her chest ache with longing for something she couldn't name. Good morning, she said, pulling her silk robe tighter. He turned, offering coffee with a smile that seemed different in daylight, softer, more vulnerable. I hope you don't mind. I thought you might need caffeine after last night. The coffee was perfect, exactly how she liked it, though she'd never told him her preferences. Another small mystery to add to her growing collection. You didn't have to stay, she said, accepting the cup. I wanted to. His gray eyes held hers. Emma, about last night. His phone rang, cutting through the moment like a blade. David glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted. The warmth vanished, replaced by sharp alertness that made him seem like a different person entirely. Excuse me, he said, stepping onto her balcony. Through the glass, Emma watched him pace, his body language screaming authority. Even muffled, his voice carried the tone of someone giving orders, not taking them. When he returned, anxiety radiated from him like heat. Work emergency? She asked. Something like that. His smile was strained. I may need to cut our morning short. Disappointment stabbed through her. Of course. Consulting can be demanding. David paused, coffee cup halfway to his lips. Emma, about my work. The phone rang again. This time, she caught fragments, merger talks, board meeting, stock price. None of it sounded like consulting. After he left with promises to call later, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that everything about David was a carefully constructed lie. She tried to work, to run, to distract herself, but questions consumed her thoughts. Who was he really? That afternoon, she did something she'd never done before. She hired a private investigator. Marcus Webb was a former NYPD detective who specialized in background checks for high-profile clients. His office smelled like coffee and old cigarettes, and his eyes held the weariness of someone who'd seen too much. I need to know about someone, Emma said, sliding David's photo across his desk, a candid shot she'd taken while he wasn't looking. David Torres. He claims to be a consultant. Webb studied the photo, then looked up sharply. Where did you meet this man? Why? Do you know him? Lady, that's not David Torres. Webb's voice was grim. That's James Alexander, CEO of Technova Industries. Worth about $12 billion, give or take a few million. The world tilted. Emma gripped the arms of her chair, remembering Jennifer's words from the gala, some call him the ghost of Silicon Valley. That's impossible, she whispered. Webb turned his computer screen toward her. Forbes articles, business journals, grainy paparazzi photos, all featuring the same man who'd made love to her with devastating tenderness just hours before. He's been completely off the radar for 3 months, Webb said. There were rumors about a breakdown, family pressures, corporate sabotage. Nobody knew where he went. Emma stared at the headlines. Technova CEO vanishes, Alexander Empire in chaos, billionaire's mysterious disappearance. He lied to me, she breathed. Question is why? Men like Alexander don't play dress up for fun. He's either running from something, or he's planning something. Emma left Webb's office in a daze. Her phone buzzed with a text from David, dinner tonight? I have something important to tell you. She stared at the message, rage and betrayal warring with something deeper, more dangerous. Despite everything, she still wanted him. Still felt that magnetic pull that had drawn her in from the first moment. But now she knew the truth. James Alexander, one of the most powerful men in America, had lied to her, manipulated her, used her charity gala as some kind of twisted game. She typed back, my place. 8 p.m. She had questions, and she was going to get answers. At 8 sharp, David, James, stood at her door holding a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her monthly salary. He'd traded the tuxedo for dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that made his eyes look like storm clouds. You look beautiful, he said, leaning down to kiss her cheek. Emma stepped back. We need to talk. Something in her tone made him go very still. Emma? What's wrong? She walked to her laptop, turned the screen toward him. Forbes article headline, James Alexander, the ghost of Silicon Valley. The color drained from his face. So, she said, voice deadly calm. Want to explain why the CEO of Technova Industries was pretending to be my escort? For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he set down the wine with trembling hands. How long have you known? He asked quietly. Since this afternoon. What I don't know is why. Is this some sick rich boy fantasy? Slumming with the common people? No. His voice was rough with emotion. God, no. Emma, it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Tell me the truth, for once. He ran his hands through his hair, suddenly looking exhausted. 3 months ago, my father died. Left me controlling interest in Technova, but with conditions. I had to marry within 6 months, or the company goes to my brother. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Marry who? Victoria Ashworth. My father's business partner's daughter. It's been arranged since we were children. His laugh was bitter. A merger disguised as a marriage. So you decided to have one last fling before your wedding? No. He stepped toward her, eyes blazing. I ran, Emma. I couldn't face becoming the man they wanted me to be. So I disappeared, started using my middle name, David, and found elite companions through a contact who owed me a favor. You became an escort. I became anonymous. For the first time in my life, people saw me without knowing who I was, what I was worth. And then I met you. His voice broke. And for one perfect night, I wasn't the Alexander heir. I was just a man falling for an extraordinary woman. Emma stared at him, heart hammering. You're getting married. In 2 weeks. If I don't, I lose everything my family built. Thousands of people will lose their jobs. And what about me? What was I supposed to be in all this? You were supposed to be one night. But Emma. He reached for her, and she let him pull her close. You became everything. She looked up into his face, seeing the truth there, raw, desperate, real. James. Don't, he whispered, pressing his forehead against hers. When you say my name like that, I almost believe we could find a way. Maybe we can. Maybe. The sound of her apartment door opening made them both freeze. Emma's blood turned to ice as a woman's voice called out. Darling, I hope you don't mind me using the spare key. We need to discuss the wedding arrangements. A stunning blonde in a designer coat stepped into the living room, her cold blue eyes taking in the scene, Emma in James's arms, his hands tangled in her hair. Victoria Ashworth smiled like a shark scenting blood. Well, she said softly. This is interesting. The silence in Emma's apartment was deafening. Victoria Ashworth stood in the doorway like an ice sculpture in Chanel, her predatory smile never wavering as she took in James's protective stance around Emma. Victoria, James said, his voice carefully controlled. How did you get in here? Oh, darling, you underestimate me. She stepped further into the room, setting down a Birkin bag worth more than Emma's car. When my fiancé disappears for 3 months, I make it my business to know everything about where he's been. And with whom? Emma felt James's hands tighten on her waist. We're not engaged yet. Semantics. Victoria's laugh was crystalline and sharp. The contracts are signed. The merger documents filed. In the eyes of what matters, namely, money, we're already bound. Emma found her voice. You need to leave. Now. Victoria's cold blue eyes fixed on her with laser intensity. Miss Chen, isn't it? Marketing director at Pinnacle Advertising. Quite impressive, climbing so high from such humble beginnings. The pause was calculated, cruel. Tell me, did you know who he was when you hired him? The words hit like physical blows. Emma's breath caught, and she felt James go rigid beside her. What? He whispered, turning to look at Emma. Victoria's smile widened. Oh, she didn't tell you? How delicious. Miss Chen here hired you through elite companions. You were her escort for the Hartwell Foundation gala. Paid for, of course. Emma watched James's face transform, confusion giving way to understanding, then to something that looked like betrayal. You hired me? James, I can explain, you hired an escort. His voice was hollow. You paid for me to be there. It wasn't like that. Emma's words tumbled over each other. I needed someone for the gala, my career was on the line, and then you showed up and everything changed. Everything changed, he repeated, stepping back from her. God, I'm so fucking stupid. Victoria clapped her hands in delight. This is better than I hoped. James, darling, you've been playing house with a woman who literally bought you for the evening. How refreshingly honest about the nature of your worth. Shut up, Victoria, James snarled, but the damage was done. Emma could see it in his eyes, the walls going back up, the distance returning. James, please listen to me, Emma pleaded. Yes, I hired an escort. But the moment you walked through that door, everything I thought I wanted changed. What happened between us? Was part of the service? His laugh was bitter. Christ, Emma, at least Victoria's honest about what she wants. Victoria moved closer, sensing victory. Which brings me to why I'm here. James, your little vacation is over. The board is asking questions, stock prices are unstable, and there are rumors of a hostile takeover. We need to announce our engagement. Tonight. Tonight? James ran his hands through his hair. Victoria, I need time. Time for what? To play more games with hired help? Victoria's voice turned steely. The announcement goes out at midnight whether you're there or not. The only question is whether you want any say in how this unfolds. Emma felt her world cracking apart. You can't force him to marry you. Can't I? Victoria pulled out her phone, showing them a photo. This is James leaving your building this morning. I have dozens more. His car in your parking garage overnight. The two of you at the gala, looking quite intimate. Emma's blood ran cold. So imagine how these photos would look in tomorrow's business section, along with a story about the missing Technova CEO's secret life as a male escort. Think of the stock price, James. Think of the thousands of employees whose pension funds are tied to Technova's success. James closed his eyes. You're bluffing. Am I? Try me. Victoria's voice was velvet over steel. I've waited 8 years for this marriage, darling. I'm not letting some marketing director's midlife crisis derail my plans. The room spun around Emma. She could see James pulling away, duty and obligation crushing whatever they'd found together. There has to be another way, Emma said desperately. There is, Victoria replied. You disappear. Tonight. Forever. James comes with me, we announce our engagement, and this sordid little episode becomes our secret. And if I don't? Victoria's smile was arctic. Then I destroy you both. James loses his company, his family's legacy, everything. And you, Miss Chen? Well, let's just say that hiring male escorts isn't the kind of behavior that leads to partnership at prestigious firms. Emma felt trapped, suffocating. Every word Victoria spoke was a nail in the coffin of her dreams, her career, her future. But looking at James, seeing the defeat in his shoulders, the resignation in his eyes, she knew her choice had been made long before Victoria walked through the door. Give us a minute, she said quietly. Victoria checked her diamond-encrusted watch. You have 5. Then we leave. When they were alone, James reached for Emma's hands. His touch was gentle, heartbroken. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so goddamn sorry. For what? For making me feel alive for the first time in years? For showing me what connection really feels like? Emma's voice broke. James, I love you. The words hung between them like a prayer and a curse. Emma. His voice was wrecked. Don't make this harder than it already is. Then don't give up. Fight for this. Fight for us. With what? He laughed bitterly. She's right. If this story breaks, I lose everything. Thousands of people depend on Technova. I can't be selfish. And what about me? What about us? Before he could answer, Victoria reappeared. Time's up, lovebirds. James, the car is waiting. Emma watched the man she loved transform back into James Alexander, billionaire CEO. His spine straightened, his face became a mask, and when he looked at her, it was with the cool politeness of a stranger. Emma, I want you to know that what we shared meant something to me. More than you'll ever know. James. But Victoria's right. This can't continue. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, you didn't need to hire anyone. You're extraordinary all on your own. And then he was gone, leaving Emma alone in her apartment with the lingering scent of his cologne and the pieces of her shattered heart. But as the door closed behind them, Emma noticed something Victoria had left behind, her phone, buzzing with notifications on the coffee table. Emma grabbed it, her heart stopping as she read the screen. The first message was from someone named Marcus, photos uploaded. Story ready for publication at your word. The second was from a number she recognized, Richard Hampton. Victoria, thank you for the heads up about Emma's extracurricular activities. Partnership discussion is off the table. Emma sank to the floor, phone clutched in her trembling hands. Victoria hadn't just threatened to destroy her, she'd already begun. But as the betrayal crashed over her, something else sparked to life. Rage. Pure, white-hot rage. Victoria Ashworth had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated exactly how far Emma Chen would go to fight for the man she loved. And now Victoria was about to find out just how dangerous a desperate woman could be. Emma stared at Victoria's forgotten phone, her mind racing through possibilities. The device was still unlocked, messages and photos laid bare like battle plans. For the first time in hours, she felt something other than despair. She felt dangerous. She scrolled through Victoria's messages, documenting everything. Photos of James leaving her building, timestamps of their movements, communications with reporters and board members. Victoria had been orchestrating this trap for weeks, not hours. But then Emma found something that made her blood freeze. A message thread with someone listed as M.A. Sent just minutes before Victoria had arrived at her apartment. Victoria, Phase 1 complete. He's exactly where we need him. M.A., and the girl? Victoria, collateral damage. She served her purpose. M.A., good. Technova's board meeting is tomorrow. Once James signs the merger documents, we can proceed with the acquisition. Victoria, he'll sign. He has no choice now. Emma's hand shook as the truth crystallized. This wasn't about marriage, it was about money. Victoria and this mysterious M.A. were using the marriage as leverage to force James into some kind of corporate deal. Her phone buzzed. Marcus Webb, the private investigator. I've been digging into your boyfriend's situation, he said without preamble. It's worse than I thought. Victoria Ashworth's family company, Ashworth Industries, is drowning in debt. They need Technova's merger to survive. What kind of merger? The kind that would gut Technova's assets and leave thousands unemployed. Word is, they've got backing from foreign investors who want to strip the company for parts. Emma closed her eyes. And James doesn't know. He thinks he's saving his father's legacy. In reality, he's about to destroy it. After Webb hung up, Emma made a decision that would either save the man she loved or destroy them both. She was going to the Technova board meeting, but first, she needed to gather allies. The next morning, Emma stood outside the office building that housed elite companions. The elegant townhouse looked respectable, discreet, nothing like the seedy stereotype she'd expected. Mrs. Patterson, the coordinator who'd originally handled her account, greeted her with concern. Miss Chen, I was so sorry to hear about the confusion with your escort. David assured us everything went smoothly, but we had no idea about his real identity. Emma leaned forward. Mrs. Patterson, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. How long has James Alexander been working for you? The older woman's face grew troubled. 6 weeks. He came to us in quite a state, desperate for anonymity, willing to do anything to escape his life. We don't usually take on clients from his background, but he was so convincing, so broken. We thought we were helping. Did he ever mention why he was running? Family pressure. An arranged marriage he couldn't face. Miss Chen, that young man was drowning when he came to us. Whatever you two found together, it was the first time I'd seen him look truly alive. Emma felt tears sting her eyes. I'm going to save him, Mrs. Patterson. But I need your help. 2 hours later, Emma walked into Technova's gleaming Manhattan headquarters carrying a briefcase full of evidence and a heart full of desperate love. The board meeting was already in progress on the 40th floor, but she'd planned for that. She found James in the executive restroom, splashing cold water on his face. He looked haggard, defeated, nothing like the confident man who'd danced with her at the gala. Emma? He spun around, shock and something else, hope, flashing in his eyes. What are you doing here? Saving you from making the biggest mistake of your life. She thrust Victoria's phone toward him. Look at these messages. Look at what she's really planning. James read the screen, his face growing paler with each word. Acquisition? What acquisition? Victoria's family company is bankrupt. They need Technova's assets to survive, and they have foreign backers ready to strip your company for parts. The marriage isn't about love or family legacy, it's about money. That's impossible. The merger documents are about combining resources, not, he stopped, understanding dawning in his eyes. Oh God. I never read the fine print. Because you trusted her. Because you thought you were doing the right thing. Emma stepped closer, her voice urgent. James, if you sign those papers today, Technova is finished. Every employee, every innovation, everything your father built, gone. He gripped the sink, knuckles white. But the photos, the threats to your career. Already happened. Victoria sent them to my boss yesterday. I'm being fired regardless. James stared at her. Emma, no. Your partnership is gone. Which means I have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. She reached up, framing his face with her hands. I love you, James. Not your money, not your company, you. And I'm not letting Victoria destroy us without a fight. Before he could respond, the restroom door burst open. Victoria stormed in, flanked by 2 security guards. There you are, darling. The board is waiting. Her eyes narrowed as she spotted her phone in Emma's hands. You little thief. Thief? Like how you're stealing James's company? Emma held up the phone. Should we tell the board about your messages with MA? About the real purpose of this merger? Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing cold fury. You have no idea what you're interfering with. This is business, not some romantic fantasy. James, Emma said, not breaking eye contact with Victoria. Who is MA? James's voice was hollow. Marcus Ashworth. Victoria's father. And your father's former business partner. The one who's been positioning himself to take over Technova since your father's death. Emma turned to Victoria. How long have you been planning this? How long have you been playing the grieving fiancé while orchestrating a hostile takeover? You know nothing about the pressures of corporate responsibility, Victoria snarled. Sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good. Whose greater good? Because it's not Technova's employees, or James's family legacy, or anyone except you and your father. Victoria signaled the security guards. Escort Miss Chen from the building. She's trespassing. But James stepped between them. No. She stays. James, be reasonable. I said no. His voice carried the authority of someone born to command. Emma, what do you need me to do? Victoria's composure finally cracked. If you walk away from this marriage, I'll destroy her completely. Not just her career, everything. I have resources you can't imagine. Emma felt James's resolve waver, and her heart broke for him. Even now, he was trying to protect her. Victoria, Emma said quietly. There's something you don't know. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a manila envelope. These are copies of all your messages, photos of your communications with Marcus Ashworth, and documentation of your planned asset stripping. I've already sent copies to the SEC, the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, and 3 major newspapers. Victoria went white. You wouldn't dare. I already did. About an hour ago. Emma's smile was sharp as a blade. You taught me something important, Victoria. Sometimes you have to be willing to destroy everything to save what matters most. You've destroyed yourself along with me, Victoria whispered. The photos of James, your career, are a small price to pay for his freedom. Emma turned to James, memorizing his face. I told you I loved you. This is what love looks like, it's sacrifice without expectation of reward. Understanding flooded James's eyes. Emma, what did you do? I made sure you could choose freely. No threats, no manipulation, no leverage. Just you, deciding what kind of man you want to be. Victoria was backing toward the door, her world crumbling. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Emma said simply. The board is about to learn the truth about the merger, James is free to choose his own path, and you're about to face federal investigation for securities fraud. After Victoria fled, Emma and James stood alone in the quiet restroom. He was staring at her like she was something miraculous and terrible. You sacrificed everything, he said softly. Your career, your reputation, your future, for me. For us. For the possibility of us. Her voice broke. Even if there is no us anymore. James stepped toward her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Emma Chen, you magnificent, impossible woman. Do you have any idea what you've done? Probably destroyed my life for someone who's going to walk away anyway? No. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was precious beyond measure. You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. What? Choice. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. The choice to be the man I want to be instead of the man everyone expects me to be. And what man is that? The man who chooses love over duty. The man who builds something real instead of managing what others built. He looked into her eyes. The man who's brave enough to deserve you. Through the restroom window, they could hear sirens in the distance, probably federal agents coming to arrest Victoria and her father. Emma's sacrifice had set in motion events that would reshape both their lives. So what happens now? Emma whispered against his chest. James pulled back to look at her, his gray eyes fierce with determination. Now I go into that boardroom and tell them the truth. All of it. About the merger, about Victoria's plans, about everything. And us? There is no us without honesty, he said. I'm going to tell them about elite companions, about how we met, about how you saved my company and my soul. His smile was soft, vulnerable. I'm going to tell them I'm in love with the woman who sacrificed everything to give me back my choice. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. James, that could destroy your credibility. Then I'll build new credibility. On truth this time instead of lies and family expectations. He kissed her hands. Emma, I want to earn the right to love you. Not as James Alexander, billionaire CEO, but as the man I choose to be. The sirens were getting closer. Soon, Victoria's world would collapse entirely, and the real work of rebuilding would begin. Are you ready for this? Emma asked. James straightened his tie, armor settling back into place, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like strength instead of a prison. With you? I'm ready for anything. As they walked toward the boardroom together, Emma realized that sometimes the greatest act of love wasn't holding on, it was having the courage to let someone choose you freely, without coercion or manipulation. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, they chose you back. 6 months later. Emma stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the small marketing firm she'd opened with her severance money, watching Manhattan pulse with life below. Her client list was small but growing. Companies that valued authenticity over prestige, innovation over tradition. It wasn't the corner office at Pinnacle she'd once dreamed of, but it was hers. The scandal had been spectacular. Victoria and Marcus Ashworth's arrest for securities fraud made front pages for weeks. The revelation that Technova's CEO had worked as an escort became tabloid gold. Emma's role in exposing the conspiracy earned her equal parts admiration and notoriety. Her phone buzzed. James, as it did every morning at exactly 9 a.m. Good morning, beautiful. Coffee later? She smiled, typing back. Always, their relationship had been a slow rebuild, constructed on honesty instead of desperation. James had stepped down as CEO, choosing instead to start a nonprofit focused on corporate transparency and ethical business practices. They'd been photographed together exactly twice, both times at charity events where James spoke about the importance of choosing authenticity over expectation. The media had eventually moved on to fresher scandals, but the changes in their lives remained. Emma was reviewing campaign proposals when her assistant knocked. "There's someone here to see you. Says it's personal." James stood in her lobby, not in his usual business casual, but in jeans and a sweater that made his gray eyes look like storm clouds. He was holding something behind his back and wearing an expression she couldn't read. "You're early," she said, glancing at her watch. "Coffee isn't for another hour." "I couldn't wait." He stepped closer, and she caught the nervous energy radiating from him. "Emma, these past 6 months have been the most honest of my life. For the first time, I know exactly who I am and what I want." "James? Let me finish. Please." He pulled his hidden hand forward, revealing a small velvet box. "I know this might seem fast, considering our history. I know we've built something real from something that started as a lie. But Emma, I need you to know, every moment we've shared since that night has been the truest thing I've ever experienced." Emma's breath caught in her throat. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done months ago, if I'd had the courage." He dropped to one knee in the middle of her small lobby, oblivious to her assistant's gasp from the reception desk. "I'm choosing you. Not because I'm trapped or manipulated or forced. Not because it makes business sense or family sense. I'm choosing you because you're the bravest, most extraordinary person I've ever known." He opened the box, revealing a simple solitaire that caught the afternoon light like captured starfire. "Emma Chen, will you marry me?" Not James Alexander the billionaire, not David Torres the escort, but me, just me, the man you helped become real? Emma stared down at him, this powerful man made vulnerable by love, and felt her world shift into perfect focus. All the fear, all the uncertainty, all the questions about their complicated beginning, none of it mattered anymore. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "yes, you impossible, beautiful man. Yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Emma realized that sometimes the best love stories began with a lie and ended with the most profound truth imaginable. They had both been playing roles when they met, her the desperate professional, him the anonymous escort. But in losing themselves in those roles, they had somehow found each other. "I love you," James said, standing to kiss her as her assistant applauded and passers-by pressed against the windows to watch. "I love your courage, your integrity, your willingness to sacrifice everything for what you believe in." "I love you too," Emma replied, tasting salt on her lips and realizing she was crying. "I love that you chose to be honest even when it cost you everything. I love that you're brave enough to build something new instead of just managing what you inherited." "So what do we do now?" he asked, echoing her question from that night in the restroom when their old lives had crumbled around them. Emma looked at the ring on her finger, simple, real, chosen freely by a man who had learned the difference between duty and love. Now we build our own story, she said. No scripts, no arrangements, no expectations from anyone but ourselves. Just us? Just us. As they kissed in the afternoon light streaming through her windows, Emma thought about fate and choice, about how sometimes you had to be willing to lose everything to find what you were really looking for. She had hired an escort and found a soulmate. He had run from his destiny and discovered his purpose. Together, they had learned that the most authentic love was born not from perfection, but from the courage to be honestly, vulnerably, completely human with another person. Outside, Manhattan continued its relentless pulse, full of other people playing other roles, making other choices. But inside her small office, two people who had found each other in the midst of elaborate deceptions finally knew exactly who they were. And that was enough. The end.